Since Cam Newton's final winning season in Carolina, dating all the way back to 2017, the Carolina Panthers have managed to go through 9 different starting quarterbacks, ranging from veterans in Teddy Bridgewater and Andy Dalton to inexperienced rookies such as Bryce Young and Will Greer, to even granting guys such as Sam Darnold a second chance. Yet, despite this, they still have managed to finish under 500 in each of the last 7 seasons. And now, as of yesterday, they have announced that they have benched their number one overall pick in Bryce Young, who they acquired in likely what will go down in one of the most lopsided trades in NFL history. But who is to blame, the player or the organization? The commentary of Bryce Young and the Carolina Panthers starts right now. Welcome back to the Play by Play podcast. This is another bonus episode for you guys where today we will be reviewing the absolute mess of an organization in the Carolina Panthers, as well as their recent benching of their number one overall pick, Bryce Young, and their decision to go forward with veteran Andy Dalton. I want to thank you guys for all of your incredible support. If you guys are watching this on YouTube, please feel free to subscribe, leave a like down below, comment, and feel free to share with your friends. And if you have not already, please go and follow us on all social medias, that being TikTok, Instagram, and Twitter, where not only will you be able to see my immediate reactions to all breaking news around the sports world, but you also will be immediately notified whenever the podcast has a new post. All of the ads will be down below in the description, and there will also be a bar popping up right here, so go ahead and follow those. And without further ado, guys, let's get started. So breaking news in the NFL yesterday, as former number one overall pick Bryce Young is going to be benched for week 3 as the starting quarterback of the Carolina Panthers. Now, this came as a pretty big surprise to a lot of people because on Sunday, following the Panthers contest against the LA Chargers, head coach Dave Canales was interviewed by reporters, and he basically said straight up that Bryce Young is going to be their quarterback going forward, that they still have a lot of confidence in him, and that they're going to try and figure this situation out. There was pretty much no indication that they were going to be going into a different direction, that they were going to be benching him. And then just a day later, before the Monday night game had kicked off, they announced it in pretty big fashion, and everyone was completely going crazy. What is happening? Why did the Carolina Panthers do this? Is this potentially the end of Bryce Young? All of these questions were swarming around. So today I'm here to give some clarification. So let's look into this. First and foremost, I want to put this out into the ether. I do not believe under any circumstances that Bryce Young's NFL career is over. I do not believe under any circumstances that Bryce Young is not a talented quarterback. I do not believe under any circumstances that Bryce Young deserves to either be in the XFL or be out of the league, because these have been some of the things that I have been hearing. Now, granted, when you look at the Carolina Panthers filmmaking, which we'll get to in just a couple of minutes here, it is very difficult to decipher who the fault leans on. There are times where Bryce Young does not look very talented. There are some times where he does look like he is struggling with the speed of the game and getting to his reads. But there are also a lot of moments where you see things in Carolina with the receivers not being able to gain a lot of separation, with the offensive line, while being a little bit improved, still caving in, and the running game just not being able to fire off, which, as we've mentioned in so many of these other episodes, makes it so much more difficult on that passing game because it makes the offense a lot more predictable and a lot more single spearheaded going forward. But I do believe that Bryce Young will have another opportunity. Now, is that with Carolina? I'm not 100% sure. It could be, it couldn't be. But one thing that I mentioned on my TikTok yesterday when quickly going over this situation is the fact that this benching is more of a lesson than it is a punishment. And what I mean by that is I think that Carolina looks at how bad their offense is. I think that Carolina is absolutely tired and exhausted of the previous perilous and difficult to watch seasons that they've had. And I honestly believe that head coach Dave Canales is looking at what is around him, and he is asking himself, he's telling himself that the only thing that I need to do is not go 0-16 this year. And when you look ahead towards the Carolina Panthers schedule, when you look at the fact that there are a lot of easy winnable games on this list. I mean, they play Washington, they play Denver, they play Chicago earlier in the season where Caleb Williams is still going to have some growing pains as a rookie. They play New England later on in the season. The goal for Dave Canales right now as a head coach is simply to win a couple of these games, to show some potential, and to keep his job. And so I think that's one of the considerations that you have to put into this, is that people are just pretty much trying to save their butts here, because they know that this thing is going downhill and they don't want to have an all-time terrible season because they've already pretty much reached that mark in the span of 2 weeks. But I think the other thing is it's just an evaluation. I think things are so difficult right now to see who to put blame on that they're sticking Andy Dalton into here to kind of evaluate this offense and see, okay, is the offense really this bad? Is Andy Dalton going to come in and give us a similar performance, potentially even worse, not be able to move the sticks any more than Bryce Young is? And so we have to begin investing into this offense because they have made certain investments. They did draft Xavier Legette in the first round. They did trade for Deontay Johnson. Like I said, they did barely, very, very, very minor improvements, but very, very minor improvements to this offensive line. Or is this offense maybe not great, but is it average, slightly below average? And Bryce Young is the one who is completely in his head and has an inability to lead this offense. So that's why I think is the huge question with this benching. It's more of an evaluation. It's more of a test of Bryce Young versus Andy Dalton to see what better results you get and who you can really put the blame onto as what is going wrong with this offense. Now, looking ahead at Andy Dalton, if I'm Bryce Young, I would be a little bit worried because he has been solid. I know that he's been a backup pretty much for the past 4 or 5 years of his career. But when he plugged in, for 3 games last year for the Carolina Panthers, 2 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. Of course, you would like that volume to be higher up a little bit more, 58 if you round up, 59% completion percentage, 361 yards in 3 games. So not incredible, not great. 17 first downs. So he did show some ability last year with an even worse offense, with even less weapons, to be able to move the sticks a little bit, to be able to advance this offense and get them into some scoring positions. Before that, when he was in New Orleans, he played 14 games for New Orleans in 2022. Sure, he only went 6-8, but 18 touchdowns, 9 interceptions, a 2-1. That's a lot better than the production that they're getting from Bryce Young right now. Nearly 3,000 yards, over 65% completion percentage. So there is some room to work here with Andy Dalton. I think that this is going to be a really solid test for this offense to see where they can get going because he's still talented. Even though he's 37 years old, even though that this is his 14th year in the league, he still has a lot of room to improve this offense. He's definitely going to be able to extend the field a lot more down the field, which is one of the things that Carolina has really been lacking. It's just throwing balls deep and getting big plays to at least get your energy up and to stop all this moping energy. Excuse me. Now, in the hands of Bryce Young, for the direction that he is, like I mentioned, I don't believe that this is his last opportunity. If it is his last opportunity in Carolina, I'm sure there are going to be plenty of other teams in the future that are going to be looking for a quarterback and that will be willing to give him a second chance. There are teams right now that could give Bryce Young that opportunity. The New York Giants are completely messed up when it comes to the quarterback position. And with them signing Daniel Jones to a massive contract, they could go ahead and at the trade deadline trade for Bryce Young, who is still on his rookie deal, and see how he works out. Miami, I saw a TikTok today about somebody potentially looking at the prospect of him going to Miami. I think that would be great for him, especially confidence-wise, just going with a much more improved offense, an offensive-minded young head coach with Mike McDaniel. And with Tua being injured, with Skylar Thompson really not showing a lot of potential, and then recently today putting Tua onto the injury reserve list, there could be an opening for Bryce Young to potentially go to Miami and improve there. Seattle, who knows if Geno Smith is going to be a long-term fit in Seattle. Oakland is in really big need of a quarterback right now. Gardner Minshew has been playing okay, but I think with the offensive weapons you have, you would like this offense to produce more. And there is going to be more and more teams down the line. There are teams that I did not mention right now. There are going to be plenty of other teams in the next 2, 3 years once he gets off this rookie deal that he is going to be able to hop on. I mean, just look at Sam Darnold and Baker Mayfield today. Baker Mayfield actually performed well at the start of his career. Things started to go downhill. He went to the Panthers. He went to the Rams. He now found a spot in Tampa Bay where he has been succeeding. Sam Darnold looked great against one of the best defenses in the league the other day on Sunday in the San Francisco 49ers. And again, for him, a lot of people just thought that he needed a lot more help. And he's now in one of the best offensive situations in Minnesota. He has Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, Kevin O'Connell as his head coach, a solid backfield with Aaron Jones. And he is now thriving and he looks great. So it could be a position for Bryce Young where, sure, maybe there's been some bad play from him, but he could go into a better position and let's say Miami and take over there and improve there. So I don't think that we should be out on him just yet. I don't believe that this is his last opportunity, and I do not believe in labeling him as a bust. Now, that being said, when looking at some film and looking over some YouTube videos of other people watching film, by the way, I would try to throw some of those links. I don't have any of them off the top of my head of the YouTubers' names, but go down below and check out some of the links that I have down below of some of the film analysis that I watched last night. It was very, very informative. So shout out to all you guys. Again, I can't remember your names completely off the top of my head, but all the links will be down in the description. But when looking at the film study of Bryce Young and my issues with him going forward, one of the big issues that I have is that his athleticism just does not seem to be translating well to the NFL. He showed a great ability to get away from the pass rush in college when pressure was closing in. He showed great ability to be able to get to the outside and stretch along plays with his legs. And in the NFL, it doesn't seem it's almost like he's missing that second gear, that second motor to get away, and he's getting shoestring tackled a lot when he is going outside of the pocket. Another big thing for me is just his inability to make the right adjustments when going to the offensive line, especially when it comes to his protections. One of the highlighted plays that you'll see throughout the entire film study all out on YouTube is their first game against the New Orleans Saints. They come up to the offensive line. The Saints are running a heavy cornerback blitz off of that right side. Bryce Young, Chuba Hubbard was originally on the outside looking as a receiver. Bryce Young brings him back into the backfield, but he lines him up on the wrong side and does not adjust his offensive line to slide to the left. And because of that, he gets absolutely blasted by that cornerback blitz that is coming from his right side. So just that inability to make these adjustments on the fly and seeing what he needs to do. Another thing is the bad decision making that ends up forcing him to abandon plays entirely. One of the other huge clips that are going out right now is obviously the pick of him leaving Adam Thielen open, going down deep. When you look at that play, there is an opportunity for Bryce Young to step up into the pocket and get to a much wider space where he can see his receivers down the field. But instead, he decides to turn to his left, get outside of the pocket, evade to the left, and his back is completely turned to the rest of the field. And at that point, the play is dead. He has linebackers converging on him. He has the defensive line that's coming behind him, and he cannot get the ball out in time, so he just gets sacked. So it's just, I think in this moment, the confidence is definitely at an all-time low. I think that he's trying to fix things. He's trying to get things going, and so he's trying to do a little bit too much. But when you end up forcing things, when you end up and abandoning the plays entirely, that's some things that can suck the wind out of the offense and suck the wind out of the stadium. Another thing is that he just does not seem very comfortable right now with the speed of NFL defenses. And as a result, I think his timing is really off. There have been a lot of throws where he throws it ahead of his receiver, behind his receiver, especially when throwing down the field. He's shown really solid arm strength, but he just hasn't been able to place it right on the money. And he has been missing some receivers going deep for 15, 20, 25 plus yard throws pretty badly. I mean, I'm talking about 3 or 4 feet of separation between the receiver and the ball. And I think the final thing is just that the man's confidence is completely shattered. I think that when you look at him, when you look at his demeanor, the fact that he's always just seems really down, he doesn't even really look like he wants to be on the field at that moment because he knows that there's not much of a chance with him with this offense. When you look at him throwing simple screens, he is missing simple screen passes to wide receivers and running backs. And I think that's just simply him second guessing himself, making these overthrows. He just does not have the confidence in himself and doesn't believe in himself anymore that he can make even these simple throws, never mind the ones that are down the field. Moving on, what are some of the things that I like out of Bryce Young? What are some of the things that still show that he has some pretty high potential? One of the things that I see mostly out of him is that he is very effective when rolling out. He is actually very effective when on the run, when he's able to escape these defensive linemen, when he's not getting shoestring tackled, when he's able to get to the outside, he throws passes right on the money. He seems very comfortable when he's in those positions. He also seems very comfortable coming out of the play action. Like I said, going to the outside, going in kind of like a bootleg type of system where he's able to just get to the spots that he needs to. And if I were the Panthers, I would love to see them try that, to try and get him more into hitting crossing routes on the move, just to get his confidence up a little bit more and to bring him into a space of being comfortable. Another thing is that as bad as his decisions are at times, as much as he tries to force the play, like I've talked about, he tries his best not to give up on it. He wants to make something positive out of it. And that's something that you can't really teach a player. That's something that, a lot of people might look at it as potentially a negative because, sure, you're not giving up on the play, but you could be forcing yourself into worse positions. But the man wants to produce. The man wants to make this work. He's not just giving up on the team, giving up on the offense entirely. As sure as his demeanor doesn't look like it already looks like he's giving up. He is trying his best to move the sticks, and it's just not working. But I love the fact that he continues to try. If he was kind of just quitting, throwing balls all over the field, then I think we would have a big issue. And the final thing out of him is as I mentioned earlier, I don't really see any issues with his arm strength. I know that was a little bit of concern from people when he was coming out of college. Is he didn't have a huge arm. He didn't have a weak arm whatsoever, but he didn't have a Joe Burrow, Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes type of arm where he could just throw it 30, 40, 50 yards. But in the NFL, he has shown ability for that. Like I said, it's not on the money. The placement is the issue. But at any moment, he can sling the rock. He can get it there. When you're talking about deep passes down the play, 75% of the battle is just getting it there. If you can get the ball there, if you have a quarterback that underthrows it, there's no point in even trying those plays. But if you at least have a quarterback that has the arm strength to sling the rock and get it to the place that it needs to be, you can work on the placement, you can work on the accuracy and getting it there. But the fact that he has the arm strength, the fact that he has that ability is a huge bright spot. So those are kind of my pros and cons. Those are kind of my issues with him and what I would blame him for, if that makes sense. But what are some of the things that the organization isn't doing? What are some of the things that this offense itself is not doing? And what kind of blame can we put on them that maybe is not on Bryce Young? First and foremost, the run game is completely non-existent. We've said it so many times, especially in the Miami Dolphins episode. When you don't have a running game, it makes your offense completely one-dimensional. You put a lot more pressure um, onto that passing game, and defenses are able to scheme against it so much easier. I mean, when you look at these numbers, they rank out of all teams that have now played 2 games, 32, 31, 30, 29th with 74 rushing yards average through 2 games. That is absolutely atrocious. And I think the big thing for Carolina, and one thing that they need to look at potentially at the trade deadline, potentially in the draft, potentially in free agency, is adding someone with a little bit more speed. Somebody like in Denver, somebody like a Jaleel McLaughlin, somebody that can change the tempo of this offense and just give you that spark that can accelerate through that hole and get you a good 5, 6, 7, 8 yards and extend the play. That's something that they really need because Chuba Hubbard is really just a power back, and he has a really difficult time hitting holes cleanly. He's very bad in pass protection, which we'll get to in just a second. But I think that Carolina needs to offer a little bit more speed and a little bit change of tempo to this offense. The offensive line, while improved, is still pretty bad. I like the outside. I like the 2 tackles that they have, but the interior is getting bull rushed game after game after game. And like we've talked about, a lot of times when your tackles are doing good, a lot of times what they're able to do is they're able to push that pressure to the outside. But because the interior is really bad, what's happening is it's just like a spear. They're bull rushing him right away. and they're able to kind of create this circle around Bryce Young that just slowly caves in on him until they get to him. And the issue for Bryce Young here, and one of the things that I didn't mention in my cons for him, is his size. I mean, at 5'9", 5'10", he's already having a pretty difficult time seeing over the offensive line and seeing the field. So when you have this closing in, when you have it happening at the speed that NFL defenses offer it, it can be very, very overwhelming for a quarterback. So they need to try to do their best, especially in that interior, to keep defenders away. I know it might seem like a silly thing to say, but to block better and not have this convergence of a circle around him where he just feels really overwhelmed. Another thing is outside of Adam Thielen, the rest of the receiving core hasn't shown a lot of potential. I've rarely seen Xavier Leggett get really any targets over the past couple of games. Deontay Johnson has looked okay, but he hasn't been an integral part of the offense. When you trade for a guy like him, he should be your number one option mostly. So I would like him to be included a lot more. Like I said, put him on some dang crossing routes and just let the man work. Let Bryce Young get to the outside, let him become mobile, start running some crossing routes and build that chemistry, build that connection between those two. And the final thing is, I feel like the play calling isn't the greatest. And one of the things that a lot of people mentioned in the film analysis that I was watching is a lot of the creation that the Panthers offense is trying to create is down the field, is 10 plus, 15 plus yards. Bryce Young does not have the time, and he does not have the skill set right now to make those throws effectively on a play-to-play basis. So one of the things that I would like to see Carolina adapt, and I know we've talked about how ineffective that it's been and how outdated it might be, but to translate more kind of to a Sean Payton type offense, an offense that's more full of flats and wide receivers running hitches, whose goal is just to help Bryce Young get the ball out quickly, because not only will it keep him protected, not only will it be more effective at moving the chains, but once again, this is about Bryce Young getting his confidence back and making those little throws, being able to see the ball move a little bit. That will get his confidence up. So in the end, how can Carolina fix this? How can they help their quarterback succeed again if this is not his last opportunity in Carolina? They need to get Bryce Young back to form. They need to protect him. That means upgrading the offensive line. That means potentially getting somebody in the backfield that is a much better pass protector for him that can aid when the offensive line is being beat. One of the things that I wrote about is potentially bringing in a max protection type system that mostly focuses on keeping the running back and Tommy Tremble, who they have at starting tight end, who is a very decent blocking tight end in the backfield, to aid Bryce Young. And then after that, just simplify things. Try your best to initiate the run game. I know that it hasn't been doing great. I know that it has been falling flat. I know that you don't have a lot of great talent in that big backfield, but you need to continue to try. You need to at least get into the middle range of some of these teams where you're getting, like Kansas City, Buffalo, these teams that are already 2-0, getting 110, 119 rush yards a game. Minnesota is another one, 128 rush yards. Start to just get more towards those numbers, because those are the teams that are having a lot more success offensively right now. So just continue to try and push that rushing game as much as you can. And then the final thing is, don't go outside of 8 yards. Just try your best to hold on to the ball as long as possible. Try to increase your time of possession as much as you can. Carolina has the worst time of possession in the league right now, and it is by far. I believe they're averaging like 12 minutes throughout the entire game because they just continue to go 3 and out, 3 and out, 3 and out. So just try your best once again to hit these short throws, to hit hitches, to hit flats, to go for 4, 5, 6 yards and extend plays and run out the clock more. So that way your offense not only has more opportunity, but you can give your defense a little bit of a rest. One of the issues right now is the defense is on the field pretty much the entire game. So you see by the end of the game, they are absolutely exhausted going up against these offenses. They are discouraged because their offense hasn't done anything, and it's just very, very difficult for them continue to hold these opposing offenses. So keep things short. Try to extend your possession of time for the offense. And the final thing is, I know I said the last thing was the final thing. This is my final thing, is get Bryce Young into a safer area for himself. Like I said, I think going to a more, if you adapt this max protect system, then you can go more to these short routes. But even more specifically, go to these short routes in a bootleg type system. Try to get him to the outside where you have effective offensive linemen with your tackles, especially to that right side, and get him to a place where he feels confident and accurate. That is going to be a big deal for them moving forward. That should be the plan for Carolina. That's what they need to execute. They should not be looking towards throwing the ball downfield 15, 20, 25 plus yards because he is not going to be able to hit those plays on a consistent basis. Keep it short, make Bryce Young more mobile, and get that confidence up by putting him into a spot that is more than comfortable for him. But until he gets back on the field, we're not going to know, unfortunately. So we'll have to see what Andy Dalton looks like. I think that Andy Dalton is going to look a lot better in this offense just because he has a lot more experience and he has shown an actual skill set in this offense as he did last year with his 3 games playing. But if not, once again, we have seen plenty of other quarterbacks go to different teams. Trey Lance, he might be a starting quarterback in Dallas in the next 1 to 2 years if Dak Prescott continues to have poor play. And I think that Bryce Young maybe doesn't have as high of a ceiling, as high of potential as Trey Lance, but is a much better player right now than Trey Lance is. So let me know what you guys think. Is Andy Dalton going to outperform Bryce Young, and Bryce Young is going to be done in Carolina? If Bryce Young is done in Carolina, where do you think that he will go? Like I said, you have Vegas, you have trying to think of the teams that I mentioned before. You have Seattle, you have New York, and then you could potentially have a team or Miami that I mentioned earlier, and then you have potential teams 2 or 3 years down the line that are obviously going to need a quarterback. So where is Bryce Young going to end up? Is his career over? I don't think so just yet. But let me know what you guys think about this recent breaking news of Bryce Young being benched. And that's all for me today, guys. So I want to thank you guys once again for all your support on this episode, on the recent episodes. The last episode for the Miami Dolphins got 90 views, our second highest viewed episode in the history of the channel. Thank you guys so much. It means the absolute world to me, and I'm hoping that we can continue to keep that momentum going. I just want to preference that if episodes are getting out a little bit later, if this is kind of late news, I am dealing with going to school right now, so I'm trying my best to get things out as soon as possible with also going to school, doing homework, doing projects, and such as that. So I'm trying my best, but I will try to get news out as quick as I can so that it is refreshing and new for you guys. And without further ado, that is it for this episode. If you're watching this on YouTube, please feel free to subscribe, like the videos, leave a comment down below, and share with your friends. And if you haven't already, please feel free to follow us on all social medias, Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter. All of the ads will be down below, and there will be a bar rising up right here. And I will catch you guys on the next one. Peace.